everybody to Worlds 2024. It is Swiss Day 6, and we are back in beautiful Berlin, Germany, where Baron is gearing up for the fall and for the winter. Hope they don't get too cold out there.
Does he just live out there?
Yeah.
Is he treated for weather?
Yes, of course. I'm glad you asked. My name is Shax, and I'm here with Jet. And as you have doubtlessly already heard, Emily has finally joined us. Let's go. Oh, we're really happy to have you here, Emily.
Yeah.
You missed a lot of action, but on the plus side, all the elimination games or the qualification games are now, so
You got to see
Let's
it from
go.
14 teams to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
amazing.
it's a good ratio.
Let me just ask you, what have been your biggest takeaways from the Swiss bracket?
I think we expected Gen G to get out, right, as one of the tournament favorites. The thing that surprised me the most as an LPL enjoyer was the fact that LNG are the first team out for the LPL, right? This was a team where we weren't even sure if Scout would be able to be here with the team. We weren't sure what their meta read was going to be. I mean, a lot of LPL analysts, myself included, were thinking that Weibo might be even better than LNG coming into this tournament because of the way the bracket shook out for qualifiers. And their meta response was really good.
And the crazy thing is, they still might not be the best LPL team.
Yeah.
It's just they were the best LPL team to this point with how LNG has been able to perform and the meta that they had. There was, I think, a really big make or break game in day 2 of Swiss when LNG beat BLG.
Yes.
Because then that filtered into the BLG versus T1, who apparently is actually really good again, and here we are.
Here we are indeed. That means that the LPL does already have LNG in, the LCK has Gen G in already, and of course, Mad Lions Koi and Pain Gaming unfortunately are out. Moving on maybe to some of those regions where we lost MDK for the LEC, but yeah. We have G2 and Fnatic left, Emily. What are your impressions of our last 2 seeds?
I mean, I think G2 are good. Like, I am more confident in them than I am in
So say we all.
in Fnatic.
That's fine. You can say that. They're used to it.
I mean, I think the more frustrating thing with looking at Fnatic is you do see the talent and like ability in this team, and then their decision making is not always the best.
Absolutely. And on the side of G2, they are in a very similar position that they were in last year. Last year they were 2-0, but they've been in this 2-1 series before. They have 2 chances to win a best of 3 and advance. And I think just the fact, even if some people would say they, like, I've actually heard people say, oh, G2 was better last year than they are this year.
Yeah.
I think literally just having the experience of what they went through last year will actually make them stronger this time around.
I think that is a great point. Let me ask you this. Do you feel like for us to get an LEC or an LCS seed out, they have to meet each other, or there has to be some civil war between other regions? Is that the only way, or do you think in a qualification best of 3, LCS or LEC beat the LCK or LPL team?
It's not the only way, but it's definitely a very likely way.
Yes.
And for G2 specifically as well, because they've beaten the LPL in a best of 5, let alone a best of 3, and they'll have 2 chances. So I think there's a decent chance.
We'll see. Same goes for LCS. Of course, Emily, what have you thought of your representatives? It seemed like FlyQuest is the one that's doing the best so far.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I've been, I guess, a little bit more of a FlyQuest defender on the LCS because I do think they often come into compositions where they will have an idea of like, this is how we want to execute this, right? They had some really good lane swaps specifically. They responded to TL's lane swaps very well in the finals as one of the reasons why they were able to come out ahead. But I also think they make individual mistakes in terms of execution. And that's why I think maybe people were a little bit more down on them coming in.
Yeah.
On the TL side, I've actually been a little bit disappointed with their performance. I know they are themselves too, right? Because this is a team that expected to look a lot better, and I don't think they've looked as strong as they did in LCS.
And I feel like they've had some nervy performances. I hope that their narrow 2-0 over Pain can help let them break through some of that nerviness and play a bit more like themselves in the future rounds.
I feel it feels like that they just have to kind of break through that and get that momentum, and
there's
then
another
they might
one that got to
revert
break
back.
through though, the GAM rematch.
The GAM rematch,
days.
exactly. Just like last year, you know, had you on here, and he said, "Well, I don't want to go through that again." Well, you have to. But we'll see. Then for the LCK, of course, they have been doing pretty good, giving the LPL a run for their money. all 4 teams have things to be happy about.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year in Swiss, LPL got 4 teams out, and that was seen as a massive accomplishment. But historically, it's been the LCK teams that almost never get eliminated in the group stage. So the fact that they already have Gen.G through, and then the other 3 LCK teams are all in the 2-1 bracket, just goes to show how dominant they have been thus far.
And the big team that I'm going to highlight here is T1. Their domestic performance, their qualification performance. Yes, I'm still sad as a KT fan. They almost made it. But T1 has looked so much better. From the first game they played, they had such a better understanding of the lane swap. They look so much more confident and comfortable in this meta. And that's incredibly, incredibly dangerous given the names on this roster.
Absolutely. And it's the thing that it keeps happening again with T1, right? They are experts at glowing up coming into Worlds.
Yeah.
We saw it just last year. They also didn't come into Worlds as a favorite to win that. And they did as they did, so yeah, it was crazy.
They have the clutch gene, but they also just have so much experience.
They
right?
do.
Like I absolutely agree with all the pre-tournament analysis that this is like the weakest T1 has gone into a world championship as.
Yeah.
But it's also the most experienced a T1 team has ever been going into a world championship with how long this roster has been together.
Exactly. And they're playing G2 tomorrow.
So we'll see.
Let's do a little bit of a meta check-in. Jack, you took a look at some numbers for us.
Yes, and the thing that everyone's been talking about continues to blow my mind. It's the fact that Yone has a 81% win rate with a 90% presence rate. So it's agreed upon that he's an incredibly high presence champion, but he's not just getting permanently banned.
Guess who lost with it?
Oh, I mean, it's including play-in.
Fnatic,
There's
G2,
Okay.
and MDK.
Lovely.
And someone else.
And guess what? They would have lost even worse without him because he's been incredibly strong. So I think that's the one that's going to increase in presence and not so much in pick rate, just because like, and this is the weird thing about Yone to me. It feels like how could there be this massive level of cognitive dissonance where it's 22 games and he's getting first picked almost every time.
Yeah.
It's because it's only happened like once or twice to most teams. I know that sounds stupid, but people need to experience it themselves before they're going to permaban it. And I feel like everyone's had their Yone experience, so he's going to be gone.
Yeah, we can catch up with this as we go through our next best of threes as well to see if any of this evolves, because the meta does feel quite open. What does feel set is the fact that we're still going to be getting those lane swaps, Emily.
Yeah, so I'm here now on the World's broadcast, which means I am talking about lane swaps.
Okay.
Let's go once again to the horror of everyone. So this is a graphic that actually pulled up during MSI, and I think this is like the reason why we're seeing so many swaps is not because of turret plates, right? Like I think teams' understanding of how lane swaps work has evolved so much. You want to pay attention to the swapping team. What side of the map do they place their jungler on? Are they weak or strong compared to where the swap is? We've seen ADs and top laners together. We've seen the duo lane mid with the support and mid laner to try to affect the mid matchup, because that's been super, super important. So I actually think I'm pleading with people to pay attention to the way these lane swaps are working, because I think we're seeing continuous evolutions, and I really like how some teams have approached it.
Could you add a column for when you have lane swapped?
Yeah.
How to do then for maybe MDK in the future?
Yeah, I can't.
Maybe
write
some other
this out.
teams.
Yeah, we don't have
What
room
not
on
to
this,
do?
but
Okay,
I'll
no
fix it.
problem.
I'll fix it for the next
We
time.
don't really need it right now. Anyways, so with that, and I'm glad we have Emily here to talk about all the lane swaps we will be we will be seeing today. We do have Dplus KIA up versus top Esports for a spot in the quarterfinals. What do we want to focus on? What is going to be the central matchup we need to look at?
All right, I want to look at, so this is going to be a combination. So it's going to be the way that like Tian and Meiko are able to affect the map versus Lucid and Moham. Because when we compare just generally these two junglers, obviously you have Tian on one side who's so remarkably experienced, right? Like he has had historically such like strong domestic performances in high pressure situations. He's talked about some nerve issues, which we've seen with this TES team already. Is kind of something that goes hand in hand with talking about them. But on the other side, we have Lucid, who we've seen kind of evolve. There were rumors as to whether DK would even stick with him going into summer. They have stuck with him. He has continue to grow as a jungler. So I think in this, we're looking at them combined with their supports and how they're able to affect the map, especially in a potential lane swap situation, which we might be talking about.
And I think the most interesting thing about all of that you just said, Emily, is the nerves on TES. Because I think if we were to look at these teams as if this was a scrim or like a regular season LPL game, I think they'd be massive favorites. But I think when you add in the history of what's happened to TES at MSI this year, or even Tian in his like recent international career, it gets a little sketchy of if that's going to impact them. And we know DK have the hands to be able to take them out if they get a little nervy and are afraid to make decisions.
Well, I think, yeah, the thing with DK is they're performing kind of consistent to what we saw from them domestically, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, you know,
what is it? Tell us.
They sometimes take some fights they shouldn't. They might not have setups, that kind of stuff. But with TES specifically, this team has had some phenomenal domestic performances, right? Just like lights out in terms of their macro understanding, the way they've been able to set up fights, and then they lose to Weibo and don't even make summer finals, right? So it's like, how are you looking at this team in high pressure situations, and specifically with Tian and Meiko, and whether they are able to lead? Because I think they're both incredibly intelligent players.
Absolutely. And I also want to pull up the gold graphs from the games that these teams have played so far, because their paths and the teams that they've played against have not necessarily been equal. So we have the TES gold graph. They've only played 3 games, and the only game they lost was this one against Gen G. Otherwise, they beat T1, who we're talking up as being this team that has suddenly arrived on the global stage, through good mid-game team fighting, and they smashed Fnatic. On the side of Dplus, they had the 0-2 to LNG, but in order to get there, they only had to defeat Fnatic and FlyQuest. So in terms of the teams that they've beaten or competed with, they've actually shown a lot less than TES has up to this point.
And I would say even more, because even with the doubts for Dplus KIA coming in, where you have that thought of maybe if the meta adjusts and the jungle mid synergy goes up, etc., they will be more effective than they have been. Those games have not strengthened my resolve in Dplus KIA. I have to say it.
They're not even super clean. Like when Whippo went 0-4 and then solo killed ShowMaker on the side lane, like that was nice.
Right, and I think that's what some of the doubts come in, right, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I think you also have to look at sometimes the way this team approaches draft, where there are times when I'm like, you know what, get ShowMaker on Syndra, get him on. I love the Silas pick from him, right? Like, that was great. Keep him off of 80 mids. We don't want to see any of that.
He doesn't want that either.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. But then it also, you have to look at the way the team will play around aiming too, right? Because they've defaulted to aiming Ziggs, which, you know, previously has been a champion that he's been really good on. He's also really good on a lot of things with escapes, specifically Kai'Sa Zeri. But yeah, it's about where they allocate their resources, and I would really love to see them take a look at what ShowMaker is best at and really, really play around that.
Let's see what our fans think in our MasterCard fan prediction of the day and see if it's close. It's rumored to be close, in the fan vote at least. 57.7% for TES and 42.3% for Dplus KIA. I don't know, man. And when you look at TES generally, despite we were having this discussion about kind of how their performances can look when the pressure is on. I don't personally feel that they should feel too pressured in this matchup. They would have another chance. They have been sovereign, right? I mean, when you look at how Dplus KIA has played out their games, Jad, it feels like they should smash this.
That TES should smash them? Okay, good. I actually do generally agree with that, but if DK, to Emily's point, can actually build cohesive drafts around ShowMaker, where I don't think he's going to be getting Yone, and if they're going to be playing AP picks, which I think is ShowMaker's strength, then they can't combo that with Ziggs. That's the biggest thing for DK to me, but they haven't shown that yet, which would make me think that TES is going to be a pretty substantial favorite.
Yeah, and then for me, it's really, again, it does come down to Tian and Meiko and how they're able to affect the map, and also just how TES have kind of been drafting as a whole for some of these teamfight compositions. I agree, though. Like, one of the more interesting matchups to me in this is also Creme versus ShowMaker, right? Just because of the way these two teams tend to play around their mids and the absolute like high ceiling on both of them.
It's true, Creme did send out a bad signal in a quote saying, oh, ShowMaker, you're so unfortunate that you have to meet us in this position. We'll see if it comes true. Of course, the next couple of days, only best of threes and only for all the marbles. Either you're in or either you book your ticket to the quarterfinal. And today we will have 2 more teams doing just that.
This next best of 3 is going to be one of the most important matches of my life. I put everything into preparing for this event.
I feel like I played pretty poorly this game.
I have no fear of making mistakes. I have no fear of disappointing.
What the hell is happening?
I just fear losing. And I will give it my all to try and win.
네, 저는 우승할 수 있다고 생각하고요. 우승할 생각이 없다고 생각하면서 임해봤자 좋을 게 하나도 없다고도 생각이 드네요. 항상 프로게이머 하면서 준비가 돼 있었다고 생각하고요. 그 기회를 꼭 만들고 싶습니다.
This is peak League of Legends, baby!
I'm never going to stop trying to fight. No matter how difficult the game looks, I want people to watch my games to be excited because something great is going to happen. I hope you can all look forward to that.
당연히 뭐 8강을 못 올라갈 확률이 더 높아진 건 맞는데 저는 저희가 충분히 올라갈 수 있다고 믿고 있고요. 저희가 끝난 게 아니고 아직도 유리한 고지고 아직도 기회가 많이 남아있다고 생각하니까 전혀 위축될 상황도 아니고 부정적으로도 생각할 상황이 아니라고 생각해서 긍정적으로 임할 것 같아요.
I hope we can have a fantastic match together that is exciting for the fans so that we can both be remembered as great teams.
화이팅!
이게 정확한 비교가 될지 모르겠지만 제가 22년도 당시에 DRX가 정말 누구한테도 이길 수 있고 누구한테도 질 수 있는 팀이라는 평가를 받았었거든요.
This year, no one was even paying attention to DRX. It's a roster of defying expectations.
그만큼 고점과 저점이 차이가 많이 난다는 건데 특정 궤도에 올라갔을 때는 그 고점이 터진다고 생각을 해요. 사실 지금 24년도 Dplus 기아도 저는 결이 비슷하다고 생각을 해요. 정말 그 누구도 이길 수 있을 거라 생각합니다. 저희 팀을 얕봐주셨으면 좋겠고 얕봐주신 만큼 저희가 톡톡히 그 대가를 치러드리겠습니다.
就在我刚打职业的时候，其实我的想法就很简单，因为我就想在舞台上展示自己嘛，我就想让自己就玩得比较帅。然后到现在的话，现在就更想赢比赛了，觉得就是队伍的胜利是更重要的。
사실 걱정이 안 된다면 그거는 거짓말이겠죠. 하지만 정말 저희가 높은 자리까지 갈 수 있는 자격을 가진 팀이라면 그런 걱정을 용기로 변환시키는 능력도 저희의 재량이라고 생각을 해서 그 부분은 저희가 이겨내야 되는 부분인 것 같습니다.
就我加入 TOP 之前，其实也没有更专注于个人发挥，只是，我觉得在团队里就给我更多指导方面的，就是天和 Meiko 吧。相比现在，就对团队的专注就比以前高了很多吧。
저희 플러스 기아는 싸움을 정말 잘한다고 생각해요. 정말 싸움을 좋아하는 팀을 만나게 된다면 그 싸움에서 지지 않을 자신이.
我只有一句话想说，碰到我们算你们倒霉。
제 가족분들 그리고 제 친구들 그리고 한국에 남아있는 제 팬분들 모두 저한테 하나같이 가장 늦게 돌아와라라고 말해줬는데 그 약속 꼭 지켜드리겠습니다.
야, 그래도 한 번은 아쉽잖아. 한번 우승해보자. 가보자. 그래. 화이팅. 화이팅. 화이팅.
Welcome back to the second half of Swiss stage, and welcome to the answers y'all have been waiting for. Who is moving forward and who is going back home? I'm Captain Flowers, joined today by Azael and Vedius for these 2 best of 3s, the first of which pits Top Esports up against Dplus KIA.
I'm excited to see who's going to make their way through towards the quarterfinals. Expectations are that Top Esports should come in as the favorites in today's matchups, which is crazy to think considering that Dplus KIA was in that 2-0 bracket, I should say. They ended up falling short to LNG, but let's see if the same thing will happen against, in theory, a tougher LPL opponent.
Yeah, I mean, it is scary for them. I think they definitely had a good opportunity to try to go through in that 3-0 bracket, obviously, but they had some easier opponents to get there, right? They beat FlyQuest, they beat Fnatic, you know, they were able to get some of those more favorable draws, and now it is getting harder and harder for them. It feels like you lost to LNG. There was a lot of questions about the drafting in that one, and then now you're going up against Top, which I think is going to be a very difficult challenge.
I think that's going to be our big question. How have Dplus KIA adapted their meta read? Because, as you said, you're on the analyst desk for those days, and I remember you saying that this is probably one of the worst drafts.
I think it's the worst draft in the world, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy how overstacked they were on the AP damage, and we'll see how they've adapted here as we jump into draft.
And I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because the expectation coming into this event was that Syndra was going to be S tier. Syndra was going to be getting picked every single game. It's only been banned against DK a single game of the 4 that they have played, but they're not playing it. Even though ShowMaker has that legendary Syndra, it just hasn't been the meta that we've really expected.
And speaking of meta, chat touched on it a little bit at the desk at the top of the day. We've seen this insane Yone presence and teams refusing to ban him a lot. Everybody's at this point kind of already had their chance to say, yeah, nobody else can deal with it, but we can. Everyone's learned better now. Yone's the first ban on the red side, and boys, I love to see it. This champion has proved to just be S++ tier so far at Worlds, so that's going to be your first ban for DK. Renekton alongside it, Gnar, Vi, and LeBlanc banned out by Top.
I like these bans from Top Esports because I think that they are kind of the foundation of where Dplus KIA have found so much success in the past. A lot of comfort for Kingen and the Gnar. Lucid so far at this tournament has been playing a bunch of Vi, being that early game facilitator, especially by playing through ShowMaker, and they've taken his LeBlanc away. Does this now increase the priority on Ari? Does this become the champion that all Aurora, of course, making its way through?
Yeah, absolutely. Aurora is up and available. You know, I agree. I think they're smart bans from Top because you're banning out LeBlanc, obviously high prio for ShowMaker. But I do think the Vi is almost like a pseudo ban towards the Ari as well because you're taking away the best pairing with the Ari. So you're also really kind of knocking down ShowMaker as far as that goes. Aurora, we've already seen Creme play it here at the tournament. Has been getting played top lane a lot as well. But, you know, definitely has the ability to be flexed.
Yeah, and when you're looking at top lane, so far, 369 in the 3 games played by Top Esports has played 2 Rumble games and 1 Renekton game alongside the Yone tax. That's both of these first half bans from DK committed towards focusing on 369. With the K'Sante locked in there, I'm assuming it is mid lane Aurora, and K'Sante will be going up
still just
into
being
top
covered
lane
for now, though.
For 369. If that does get locked in, oh, my bad, I didn't see the thing still flashing on my screen there.
Yeah,
the glare got me,
see.
but results-based analysis, I was still correct. It ends up right at the end of the day, and that's going to be picked in as the response. We've got Jax and Skarner for DK. Skarner, another one of those champions, already been played by Lucid so far in the tournament, alongside that Vi that you mentioned that was banned out.
I mean, I'm not surprised because when we look at Top Esports, 369 hasn't really showcased the proficiency for a champion like Aurora on the top side of the map. So the fact that they're just going to lock in the K'Sante now, especially given that they've already seen the Jax, makes a lot of sense. This was a team fighting style that they used to take advantage of when playing against T1 to be able to out-team fight them with the Jhin coming in later from JackeyLove, but they're changing things up. That time around they had the Skarner. This time around they are going to be running the Zhao in the jungle, one of Tian's all-time most played, a big comfort pick for him, and it's something that, well, I think there was some discussion around would it arrive here at the World Championship, but we're going to get to see it for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. The first pick, you know, wasn't picked in play-ins or Swiss thus far. Obviously, very strong early game champion here. You know, can really skirmish well. And if you get ahead, the ultimate can create a lot of space in the late game. You know, can definitely be pretty strong, but it's going to be interesting to see how well Tian is going to be able to perform on this pick, because Skarner does pretty heavily, I think, outscale as far as the utility you have in those late game fights.
Dplus KIA prioritizing their support, basically saying that they're very likely going to give ShowMaker the last pick, so we can see the entire draft. He may be thinking about a Silas once more, but you don't want to have to blind pick that depending on how the bot lane rounds out.
Boom, banned out.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, brother.
The Poppy ban away to, well, that makes a lot of sense. I think Poppy in general is quite good into Jax and Rell specifically, so that's going to be removed. They may look to get rid of Alistair. Alternatively, they could get rid of the Leona. Both very meta-engaged supports that also just work well with things like the Jhin. potentially a Kai'Sa that could come out from top esports as well.
I like the Alistar ban angle too, considering your opponents have already banned away Silas. Normally that's something that you would love to pick into an Alistar, but no, it's going to be Renata Glass instead, wanting to make sure they don't have that powerful lane bully potential with a couple of aggressive early AD carries alongside the big counter dive in the team fights.
Exactly. I mean, you already have 3 melee champions drafted in here. You know, you're talking about potentially even more going in if you're looking towards a Kai'Sa, if you're looking towards a dive champ for ShowMaker. I think Renata is a really good answer. And I actually prefer this ban, you know, over a lot of those melee engaged supports because I do feel that there's so many in that pool that are pretty interchangeable. Okay. Yes, I think everyone agrees that Rell is kind of the S tier, but you have Leona, you have Alistar, you have Nautilus, you have all these champions that can kind of just be slotted in and really are fulfilling a very similar role, but clearly top not wanting to allow DK to get some of those prime dive champions. The Kai'Sa is going to be banned out in addition to that Silas, which already was banned. So this might change things up, and we are going to get an Orianna here from ShowMaker.
Ooh, Orianna.
First one of the tournament, so I mean, 5 games, 5 different champs for him.
Yeah, when I think of ShowMaker, I don't traditionally think of Orianna. He's always been that kind of...
Think of playmakers and aggressive champs.
I mean, he's ShowMaker playmaker. That's it goes with the name, right?
This is ShowMaker scale to 3 items and look for a shockwave.
Yeah, but you have to give the respect to him, even if it's not one of his like most well-known champions. Against Aurora, it's a great matchup. She is so good at bullying a lot of champions, but Aurora really struggles to line up against the champion. So you're going to guarantee priority in that mid lane matchup. You're going to get to see the AD carry on the bot side of the map. And the top esports ran out with an Ashe Braum, a very defensive but also high pressure lane just because of the range and training potential that Ashe Braum can give you. We'll see if DK can round things out with a draft that gives them a little bit more control on the bot side of the map.
I like the Ashe here too for top esports because it gives you a go button, right? When you look at the rest of the composition, there's not that huge hard engage. Kasante's good at isolating somebody. Aurora can catch somebody, but if she's the main engage, it can get kind of dicey for her as well. I like the ability to get the arrow in there, find some engage in a role that often doesn't have as much. Now let's see what DK wants to do here for this final pick of the draft that they did save for the AD carry role. A lot of the times you don't see this on Red 5, but it looks like DK wanted to save it for the hyper-scaling power of the Smolder.
I'm surprised, honestly. I was expecting something like an Ezreal, a little bit more defensively. When Aimling gets a champion like that, he has so much agency and control later on into the game. But I'm surprised to see Smolder return to the bot lane because after the repeated nerfs, like the reason why you see it mid top into these safe laners is because he has a rough laning phase. You want that time to be able to scale up, get to that point, but dives, lane swaps, I mean, playing into an Ashe, all these variables make it difficult for pro-level Smolder to get through a laning phase. But Dplus KIA clearly have confidence in the pick. They have another avenue for strong scaling later on into the game. And in terms of their team fighting, Dplus KIA have a great comp.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they scale insanely well on the DK side. Aiming, you know, already played the Smolder once this tournament, was against FlyQuest, and was actually against an Ashe as well. So, you know, is probably pretty comfortable in that matchup. This is the second time he's going to be bringing it into it. And it is going to be interesting. You know, sometimes in those 2v2 lanes, you can get some pretty good early stacks if you can hit those Ws, especially on a champion that doesn't really have a huge threat of hard engage like the Braum. Every time he's coming up, you can get some free stacks and look to play to scale because their game plan is going to be slow. You have Skarner, Ori, Rell, Jax, and the Smolder. These are 5 late game monsters for DK.
Do you guys think we're going to see a lane swap here? Is that the play, or will it be standard stuff?
I think it's potential to be standard lanes. I don't think anyone has these massive advantages in the bot lane, but we'll see what they want to look for.
My instinct is that if someone's going to do it, it'll be DK. Because I think that the Smolder may want to get out of that bot lane 2 versus 2. We'll keep track of whether or not they choose to do it. For now, it looks like a pretty standard line of scrimmages. We have a look at the runes. Looking across the field, it doesn't look like there's anything too crazy coming out from any side. Prio is a super important thing to think about. The top lane is just going to be this back and forth flow between the K'Sante and the Jax. Something that we've seen multiple times before. We're probably not going to pay much attention to that top side of the map. Bot lane, I'm expecting top esports to have that early push, and in the mid lane, I'm expecting it to go in the favor of ShowMaker. The thing about these junglers, though, is that Lucid's going to prioritize just full clearing on the Skarner, and as we talked about the swap, you'll notice that Aimling is making his way up towards the backside of the jungle, heading towards that top lane, meaning that we're likely going to see the traditional form of the lane swap. You can can see Top Esports reading the play. They're already moving into the bot side enemy jungle, leveraging the Braum Ashe combo that they do have, knowing it's a strong level 1, but also likely expecting this lane swap to come through.
Exactly. They'll use the sweeper. They'll find that ward there in the brush. And unfortunately, we are off to a pause here at the very start. Not exactly certain what the nature of this one is. So we'll try to update you guys ASAP on whatever's going on. And hopefully we can get it back onto the Rift very quickly.
Yeah, it's also worth noting Lucid is playing Aftershock, which pretty much always means that you are going to be going towards those more supportive style items. Almost always you do see people going Grasp when they're going to go Heartsteel Sterix and that style of build. So it'll be interesting to see if he is just going to go towards Zeke's or Locket. But every once in a while you do still see people play Aftershock with Heartsteel.
Now the viewers at home can't hear this, but it's paused while a sweeper is going off. So we now hear that sweeper.
I really hope they can't hear it as well, because it's rather loud. It's the sweeper resonance noise.
It's
right
here it's
with
just
us.
there.
That brush is very swept at this point.
That brush is controlled. The update that we have for y'all so far is that the pause is related to potential hardware issues, but we don't know anything more than that right now. So as officials are investigating and figuring out what is going on there, hopefully we can get to the bottom of it, see what's going on. The worst part is we haven't even got to see exactly what's shaking out yet in the game, except for the fact that, hey, the lane swap is on the menu, and that's how we're starting the series off.
And I mean, mostly when we've seen these lane swaps at Worlds, it's just to get a little bit of experience, get towards level 3, and then they just swap right back, and they play standard lanes after that if you think you have a really poor level 1 or some sort of problem from there. So that's kind of the expectation, I think, here from Aiming.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen... I would say, in my opinion, that the current iteration of the lane swap is the easiest compared to many of the other versions that we've seen in the past, mainly just because you run a duo lane mid, you run a duo lane top, you get enough XP that you're level 2, and then everyone heads towards one side of the map.
The sweeper is
turned
gone.
off.
Yeah.
It's done.
Praise to the production team.
Thank you, production. We appreciate that.
We are safe.
The longest duration sweeper of all time in League of Legends.
It reminds me of the Corki E-bug.
Oh, God,
in a pause,
yeah.
sometimes you get it, but then you come out of the pause.
And it's still going?
And it's still going.
Yeah, you just hear the Gatling gun for the next 40 minutes.
Do you guys remember back a few years ago when Amumu's taunt or laugh or something was global for a couple of patches?
I do remember
that. So even solo queue players, it wasn't just competitive pauses, it was everyone was just subject to an Amumu player's whims.
And Nunu used to be like that as well. And you could do the Robo Nunu or whatever and spam the laugh. And you could just hear it the entire game. Because you can't actually mute in-game. You can't mute the actual emote sounds. No. So it was an experience playing League of Legends back in those patches.
Darker times in League of Legends, but it sounds like we'll hopefully be hopping back into the game here real soon. And then we can get this game 1 underway, Top versus DK. You guys already talked about it a little bit, but DK coming into the 2-0 spot in the bracket. They started off with what I think a lot of fans, a lot of viewers would consider like the ideal draw, right? You get Fnatic into FlyQuest. A lot of teams are going to look at that and say, hey, this is a great matchup. We're feeling good, 2-0. Then you go into the best of 3 against LNG to get that coveted 3-0 spot straight into the quarterfinals, straight to Paris. And it all kind of fell apart. Isaac, I know you were very unhappy with the one draft, but honestly, it just felt like DK got outplayed a lot there. So they got to be looking to redeem themselves in that performance here a little bit today.
Yeah, one of the interesting things was, it was that Game 2 draft that you're referencing, where they were basically playing full AP into a team that could stack a ton of MR, including having a Galio on the team. I actually thought that was the best as far as gameplay that DK played in the entire tournament. Even though they did lose, they actually ended up making it a rather competitive game, which was pretty surprising to me because of the massive draft disadvantages. But that's kind of just the team that this team is. Like, they can be really, really good. When they're on, they are crushing it. Mechanically, they're very, very talented, but you just don't know what you're going to get from them. Even when you look towards their game against FlyQuest, they created this large early advantage and then gave some really big opportunities for FlyQuest to actually pull that game back and put themselves in a lead where, had FlyQuest played it better, maybe they could have even cleaned that up. So, DK is definitely a bit of a hit or miss team.
Oh, Moham getting jumped on here by Tian as he makes that invade early on here. Moham is going to make it back underneath the tier 1 turret, though. Level 1 with 2/3 HP as they are preparing to crash that wave into the tier 1 turret.
So to talk a little bit more about DK, they have some very interesting stats that we're going to bring up here as far as the gold leads throughout different times in the game that I think are very indicative of their level of performance. Incredible early game, and it really starts to struggle. That's where they start to be more difficult on the coordinated play, but we're going to see if they can pull off his dive.
All right, 4v2. Kingen and Moham got to try to survive this one. Who's going to take the turret aggro here at the very start? Looks like Meiko TES walking back away, but now Tian with that 3 talent strike already primed. It's first blood, though, the other direction. DK doing a good job. Moham surely has to die here. A 1-for-1 trade, but in a 2v4, DK is going to be all right with that one.
I mean, there's good news and bad news for DK. The good news is that Kingen doesn't lose his life, but the bad news is he's being denied a lot of farm, so he's trying his best to get back underneath the tower.
But he is stunned. 369 Meiko and JackeyLove want to try to deny even more here if they can. Kingen popping the counter-strike, staying alive for now. Nice two-man stun coming out, but Kingen down to about 50 HP, still staying alive somehow, but the volley claims his life. Top Esports get their man.
Yeah, that was pretty well played overall by Top. You know, they forced out the Counter-Strike initially, and then as soon as Kingen has that Counter-Strike down, they flash forward, they chase after him to go for that redive. And it was First Blood that did go to DK, but Kingen trying to get back that tower was a bit too far. Again, this is after the initial Counter-Strike had been popped. You can see a good job there by Moham, being able to peel, being able to keep them locked up under that tower to be able to get First Blood. Then the kill is traded back, and Kingen decides, you know, he's going to try to go for this, but this is very risky. You get tagged by the auto from Meiko, and then the Q follows it up and procs that Braum stun. He's already so low.
Yeah, at this point, he's trying his best to leverage the counter-strike, but Meiko with a great flash there, reading the stun that's going to come through from Kingen, and he's able to sidestep it, and then they manage the tower aggro beautifully. So Top Esports find 2 kills. They're happy ultimately with how the play works out. They deny a lot of farm, a lot of XP, and crucially, they get a kill onto 369 to help funnel more golden resources into him as well.
Yeah, and it's always painful, you know, for Kingen when you use your TP prior to a dive like that. You know, the TP is down, and you do get punished pretty heavily as a result. Mid lane, though, quietly going slightly in the favor here of ShowMaker, has had the push as you were expecting, Vetty. And jungle has really just been Lucid farming it up here. You know, he is about that 1.5 camp ahead here at this point. Now gets another camp.
Yeah, exactly. He wins a little bit of a smite battle there for the Wolves as, again, he's invaded by Tian. Kingen's got to be a little careful here, though. Meiko showing up to help JackeyLove, who puts plenty of arrows into the Jacks, but Kingen still healing up thanks to the potion, back underneath the safety of the Tier 1 turrets. Tian still hanging around, but Lucid is also here farming up his own Braum.
So normally we see these swap backs, right? And the reason why the swap backs are quite important is because of the wave states after all these shenanigans happen. The problem for Kingen is that that wave was bouncing away from him after that tower dive, and so usually you'd bring the bot lane back so they can at least contest the wave, but Kingen now finds himself trying to contest the wave, gets collapsed, but now look at the state of the wave. JackeyLove can freeze this here and be very happy, and Kingen is now just losing a lot of resources.
Well, and that's why they're going to swap back now. So aiming his base, he's going to head back down towards bot because they realize that Kingen is basically in a no-win situation. He's not going to be able to fix that wave by himself. So aiming has been able to get all the way up towards level 5. He's gotten a lot of solo experience up on that top side. He has a Sheen, he has a Tier, he's at a pretty good point in the game. So he's now happy to be matching up against this Ashe, and him and Moham will be heading out towards bot. They're being covered by Lucid, and they should be able to fix this wave no problem. But we can see JackeyLove already is starting a bit of a slow push here for himself.
Yeah, him and Meiko just going to have to try to deal with this 2v3 situation now. Moham immediately in with a crash down, shattering strike. Meiko at 100 HP, and Aimling is on the board.
A clean gank from Dplus KIA, and just well timed. Top Esports, rather than setting up for a freeze, they ran the risks of, okay, a swap is going to come through. If they have a stacked wave and they get it underneath this tower, they're going to dive us. So let's thin the wave, push it as quickly as possible, and then reset, spend the gold. But regardless of that, DK still found a window to find a gank. There was no vision in that tri-brush. Lucid was able to get close enough, and they knew that Meiko had no flash. So just like that, Dplus KIA equalized the kills.
Yeah, and actually, we see the ShowMaker use his Shockwave, got a really good trade on Creme, who doesn't have his teleport available. So did lose a couple of minions there as he gets shoved in. The wave isn't quite back yet for ShowMaker to push, so it will be a cannon wave as well. So Creme's not going to miss too much here, but ShowMaker definitely getting prio there, as we did have a Dragon for Grubs trade up on that top side.
Still very, very even in gold overall, with those neutral objectives being handshook, as you're talking about. Aiming 38 stacks, so pretty much exactly where you would expect the Smolder to be at this point.
And you've also got to say, JackeyLove now has to be careful for the next couple of minutes. Did lose his flash, obviously got out. It was Meiko that gave his life. But now you're looking over, Moham has flash, Lucid has flash, and this is very, very dangerous for that Ashe. Even if you have the cleanse available, it's not necessarily going to matter.
So scary for a champion with no inbuilt defenses, no inbuilt utility for escaping, other than just kiting a guy so he never reaches you in the first place. Bit of a problem, though, with all of that engage, all of that gap-closing potential there. 3 minutes until their next set of grubs, 4 minutes until the next Drake, so not entirely synced up, but still pretty close. Moham flashing out of the way as the arrow from JackeyLove immediately flies out, forcing the summoner spell from the DK support. One more auto attack will also proc those concussive blows, and Aimling now down to about 1/3 life.
Now, JackeyLove as a player has evolved a lot away from this idea of the hyper-aggressive, trading his life for kills type of moniker. He's become a lot more consistent, and I think that was a great example of the controlled aggression that you often see from JackeyLove and Meiko. As a bot lane, they still like to fight, they still like to go for those aggressive trades, and they recognize their strength. They know you're still a Smolder. How are you going to fight back against an Ashe Braum? And they just walk up, leverage the level 6 that JackeyLove has. They force Moham out, and then they get a really nice trade onto Aimling, forcing him back. So even though he loses his flash, JackeyLove still actually not playing afraid, and with good vision control, they're getting advantages in the 2v2.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've already taken 3 plates. They're very close to taking that 4th. They just denied an entire wave to Aimling off the back of that trade that they did push him back from. So it was a trade, of course, of that cleanse for heal. Meiko used his heal to be able to catch up to Aimling and get that damage down. Tian in the area now will be spotted if he walks out of that pixel brush, and you can see Lucid is down on this side of the map. So we'll have a chance to respond here as Meiko is going to get spotted, and now Tian seen there as well.
Exactly. Tian wanted to make sure that he was ready in case Lucid came down here to punish this constantly pushing wave of top esports. Lucid now hanging around the mid wave instead, as Tian will find another control ward and clear that one out. It feels good for top esports to be able to get this early of value out of those first 3 grubs too, since you often do have to trade those neutral objectives early on. Having both top lane and bottom lane colliding the waves into the turrets like they are, you're getting plenty of early value there.
You certainly are. And right now, it's kind of a slow affair, largely because of, well, the compositions. Both teams kind of waiting for those first item spikes to come through. Ashe Arrow.
Oh, nice
Nicely done.
shot there from JackeyLove, forcing a flash out of ShowMaker.
And now they're going for the swap up to top side, knowing that the grubs are spawning in about a minute. Good timing for them, as they can allow that bot wave to be pushed in. They can even put some pressure onto those top tower plates and maybe catch DK off guard.
And it makes it so much harder now for DK to actually contest here if they want to, because ShowMaker is now missing that flash. So if you show up to this objective fight, could be problematic. Aimling is able to get the push though, and at least does get 1 plate. We'll see if DK are going to look to try to challenge here. 6 grubs can be very problematic, especially when it has been top. That's largely been the ones on the push.
Yeah, and you can look, you still don't have the cleanse cooldown for Aimling, you don't have the real flash for Moham, and then over on the other side, it's only JackeyLove's flash that is down, but it'll honestly be coming right back up around the time that they've been wanting to contest for those grubs. So things are looking pretty good for top esports around that area. Meiko and JackeyLove now also just going to grab even more money from these plates. 10.5 minutes into the game, you can see on the left side of your screen, it's JackeyLove, 200 gold out in front of anybody
and
else.
You can see Kingen head down towards bots. They're going to try to overload this side of the map. They're going to try to look to farm a lot of these plates. So this is signifying I don't think they're actually going to contest here at the grubs, and we'll see if it's going to be an immediate start for top. They're already going to be able to take the tier 1 top. They will win the race on this, and top just playing the map really, really well.
Overall, I think top esports have just been playing the better macro game than DK have in the laning phase, and you'll see the little pink bars underneath the champion icons. Look at 369, a half a level up from Kingen, and that's just come from him moving around the map, being at the right waves at the right time, and Kingen has just kind of been playing catch up a little bit, as top esports have been the proactive ones when it comes to moving around the map.
Another pause, and we will see. The one thing I will say is, despite the fact that top has opened up a 1K gold lead, and it looks like they're going to be able to likely get 6 grubs here also, the scaling for DK is really, really strong, so they may feel okay to be down a little bit in gold. The question is going to be, can you actually, keep it within reach, over this next 10, 15 minutes? Are they going to be able to, maintain this slight gold deficit, or is top going to be able to really accelerate the game, utilize those 6 scrubs, constantly push these waves, and bring the gold to a level where you can't really compete realistically in the 5v5?
So since we have a couple minutes to talk about it anyway, because of the pause, again, not exactly sure what that is yet. We'll let you guys know when we figure out more. That 1,000 gold lead right now, just a little bit after 11 minutes into the game. What does the gold advantage need to be then for top esports when the clock strikes 20 for them to feel confident against this powerful scaling capability of DK, do you think?
That's a very specific question.
No, we got to pause. I got to ask you guys some specific questions.
I mean, if you have an answer,
well, it's mainly so that, I think that while I think DK have a scaling advantage, I don't think it's egregious enough that top esports need to have accelerated the game to a certain point, that's the only way that they can win. Because in my opinion, Top Esports' composition has great pick potential, right? In particular with Creme and JackeyLove on Aurora and Ashe, you have that great assassination potential. You pick out a target, especially low mobility targets like Orianna. With all this potential collapse that you have, there's a lot of threat. So I feel like the Top Esports will always have options in the team fights. It just will get to a certain point in the game where the stacks on Smolder become so egregious, and I think the Jax on a side lane is going to be your other potential problem that DK can look to leverage. The next question then becomes, do you trust DK enough to execute upon their composition? Because I think in this tournament, they've showcased that their setups around objectives aren't always optimal. The decisions that they make on side lanes are a bit questionable. But that's a little bit more intangible.
I mean, execution is always more important than scaling. You know, at the end of the day, you have to pilot your champions correctly. But to me, like, I do think there's a very significant scaling advantage for DK. You know, I would kind of look at a 3-item breakpoint here. You know, if DK are able to get their carries to 3 items and they're within a couple thousand gold, I feel like they have outscaled. As long as you are having, you know, those well-executed fights, I think they are significantly favored at that point in the game. The question is, you know, can you execute as well as top? Because as Vetti's saying, there is always going to be those opportunities for picks and for outplays, you know, for a failed execution. But I think it is almost impossible to fight front to back against Orianna, Jax, Rell, Skarner, and Smolder when you're at 3 items if the game is close. Like, it just becomes so difficult. There's so many threats that the counter engage, I think, is going to be ridiculously tough for them to deal with.
All right, so as we go forward, then we'll keep in mind those big item breakpoints alongside the fact that DK's got to keep things a little cleaner than they have so far in the tournament from what we've seen up until this point. Still, just only a little over a 1,000 gold lead for Top Esports, 12.5 minutes in. There is that full second set of grubs that went the way of Top as well as soon as we unpaused the game. The second Drake is live. The first one, remember, was claimed by DK, but now it's Top Esports jumping in after the second.
So the big advantage that Top Esports have right now is just the strength of their bottom lane. The fact that they can get prio pretty much wherever they move on the map is allowing Top Esports a lot of control around these towers and these neutral objectives. The fact that they secured the 6 grubs, the only reason why they're down a Drake right now is because they traded the grubs in favor of the Dragon, and now again they've leveraged their bot lane to secure that objective, and they're going to bring that bot lane back into the 2 versus 2 to keep putting pressure onto this bot lane tower. You can see this gold lead ever so slightly getting larger and larger, and it's a lot off the back of what is happening thanks to the bot lane from Top Esports.
And when you're thinking about the graphic that we showed earlier, it is concerning, as a nice sidestep there from Aiming. They're going to look to dive anyway.
Ooh, Glacial Fissure knocks Aiming up into the air, but he and Moham honestly still feeling pretty safe underneath the tier 1 turret here. Even though Tian is around, that would be the proposition of diving a Rell with ultimate underneath the turret. Very scary stuff, so Top Esports call it off.
So DK, you know, has been one of the best early game teams at the tournament. They have really struggled in those later stages, as Lucid going to have to run away here. And did, in fact, go Heartsteel, by the way, with the Aftershock. Definitely the less common. When you do go Aftershock, almost always people are going more of those supportive styles and largely playing towards Grasp when they do play Heartsteel, but is going to go for that scaling build, so even kind of more indexing towards what they do see as, I think, their win condition, which is going to be scaling 5v5.
I mean, I can understand taking the Aftershock sometimes with the big health stacking build as well, since you're just building these items that give you such insane health pools but no resistances, having that extra tankiness from the Aftershock proc, as long as you don't miss your E and your R. I mean, if you miss those, then I guess why did you take the thing in the first place? But bottom lane tier 1 turret in some serious trouble now, as a little bit more damage gets it done. Moham jumps in here with the Magnet Storm, immediately trying to make the fight happen in the 2v2. Meanwhile, the jungler fight off to the side ain't gonna matter because Moham is already dead. The arrows fly, and DK dies. Top Esports picking up 3 as ShowMaker and Kingen tried to join up to help everybody else, but now they're in a bad spot too. Creme and Tian chasing after ShowMaker. He's trying to buy himself a little bit of extra time. Top Esports are on the hunt for the Orianna. ShowMaker still trying to get away. 2-man Shockwave. It don't even matter, man. ShowMaker is going nowhere fast. Top Esports, turret +4.
Top Esports, again, just wisely play through their bot lane. They know that they're the strongest part of the map right now. They set up a siege onto the bot tower, and DK say, we're going to try and hold this. We're going to defend. We think we're strong enough to try and fight you. Azale talks a lot about the scaling elements, but DK saying, we feel we're strong enough to fight now, and they are not.
And DK just waited too long. I mean, Moham, I think it's a good idea as the minion wave is getting cleared out to look for this hard engage with the tower still alive, but he goes in too late. All 4 TPs from the solo laners are used, but ShowMaker and Kingen are TPing in way far away from the rest of the team, whereas the top solo laners arrive and are immediately participating in that dive, and it ends up being being basically a 5v3 situation where they just slaughter the bot lane from DK, they kill off Lucid, and ShowMaker and Kingen have nothing to do but watch the game slip away.
Exactly that. The Herald is now going to be converted in favor of top esports as well. And now they can move this bot lane into the mid lane and start sieging onto this mid tier 1, really unlocking the map for top esports and start threatening even the jungle of Dplus KIA.
3.5 minutes ago, we were looking at a game state where the neutral objectives were 1-1. Top Esports was about to make it a 2-1, and the gold was 1,000 apart. Now, only that short time later, it's a 4,500 gold lead. It's a massive advantage for Top Esports, having secured the Rift Herald now as well, and it feels like Dplus, their chances are just disappearing in a flash.
Absolutely. I mean, you're getting completely choked out off the map at this point in the game. It is going to be so hard, and it just becomes a nightmare. Like, Grubs is sometimes really valuable, sometimes not, but when you're already really ahead, it becomes so annoying because they're always going to get the push. Now they have the Herald. This is going to be 12 Void Mites popping out of this thing. It's like a clown car of Void Mites running out there.
Kingen jumping in though with a counter-strike for the engage. Tian is low, but Top Esports are going between worlds. Tian gets away, and a massive amount of damage pours into the DK lines. JackeyLove grabbing the first kill. Moham is down. Lucid jumps over the wall, but all DK can do is run. Top Esports are that far ahead.
Tian played that flawlessly. Bear in mind, he has no flash. He gets engaged on from a flanking Kingen. He then gets Skarner ulted underneath the tower, and patiently what he does is he ults, knocks, I think it was the Jax back, and then he uses that as like a bandwagon to then get back to his team to then turn the fight around. Just keep track of Tian in the fight, because as the initiation starts, they catch him coming out of the Rift Herald. They say this is an opportunity to fight. He then gets jumped on by Kingen. He's then going to get dragged underneath the tower. All of the CC thrown onto him. A nice Ashe arrow provides him a bit of space, and then look at that. The ulti onto the Jax allows him a getaway vehicle, and they turn a kill back onto Moham.
Exactly. If you haven't hit someone, that Crescent Guard does knock back, so he doesn't hit the Jax, knocks him back, then uses the charge over onto him. Really well played there by Tian. Knew he was going to be in some danger after driving it in, but Crescent Guard is so powerful in these situations. If you can just get Aimling and ShowMaker outside of that, they can't do anything to you.
Masterfully maneuvered by the Top Esports jungler in what looked like should have been a death sentence with that collapse. But the only thing collapsing now is DK's chances in this game. Still 4,500 gold down. There is another Drake live, but it's not going to stay that way for very long. Top Esports are already on it. There is no contest for DK. They know how worrying it is to even try to go out and contest anything in neutral territory.
Yeah, I mean, it's really problematic now, and not only are they just trading a tower for a dragon, because Creme is pushing down bot side looking for that tier 2. It does survive for now, but that thing is about to go down to these Void Mites. That's 700 gold in the pockets of Creme there, which now puts him ahead of ShowMaker. That was the only person when we saw the gold breakdown that was ahead for DK, and now he no longer is. Ashe was already on 2 items, before Aimling completed his 2, so they couldn't really look to fight. At this point, you're basically sitting back, you're praying that Aimling can actually get these stacks fast enough that you can maybe make something happen, but he's only at 147. He is very far away from that 225 breakpoint, and by the time it comes in, could be too little too late.
Tian over the wall, again, maybe looking for a fight. Kingen jumps in for the counter-strike. JackeyLove could be in a little bit of trouble here. Gets away for now. They're locking up the Jax. Kingen can't do it. Moham's about to die here, too. Finally, they get one back on DK's side as Creme gets popped, but Moham's still getting away with only 100 HP. Lucid's here on the front line. Has to try to flash to get out of it. The Impale's going to be flashed back by Tian. As DK, they trade even, and that's about the best they could ask for.
It's a 1-for-1, but the player I want you to just stay focused on is JackeyLove, because they threw everything at him. Kingen was diving on top of him, the Shockwave was there as well, the Skarner was following up, and it still didn't even get his flash.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. It's crazy. The confidence that he has in these situations to just hold on to the flash. He really knows how much damage he can take, the limits he can play towards. It's pretty incredible stuff as Kingen came around on that corner, and you think, okay, he is definitely in trouble there. As he gets hit by the shockwave, he's knocked back, but he kites out. Meiko is blocking well for him. Tian is turning and peeling, and they just focus down Kingen. While on the other side, yes, Creme does go down, but Creme uses the ultimate to make sure that the rest of DK can never follow up. It's really well played there.
And credit to Meiko too, the use of the heal as also just like that extra summoner spell that you often don't think of. Like Meiko, I mean, the bot lane's just having an incredible game. And I think that as a Westerner, there is a perception around top esports that like they choke, right? When it comes to the international events, there's always that question mark, how are they going to perform? You look at their recent performance over the last few years, like they've struggled to get out of groups. They've had performances that you don't expect from them. But so far at this tournament, they've been playing at a very high level. We've seen their early games be incredibly strong, very consistent. Tian alone has been having a great game. His presence has been felt all across the map. But this bot lane in particular is really standing out here in game 1 of this series.
And now Top Esports have no intention of slowing down, invading the enemy red side jungle. Lucid and Aimling, yeah, they're hanging around. They don't want to allow the red buff to just be stolen away this easily, but Top would love for these guys to step a little bit too close, and Lucid does just that. There's no way out for the Skarner. Tian ends up taking the kill, and gentlemen, we're 21 minutes into the game. The enemy jungler is down. Top Esports have a ticket straight to the Baron.
Yeah, it's so tough, and Lucid had no flash, so being that far forward over towards the red buff is incredibly risky, and now it's going to be a largely uncontested Baron here, as King is just going to try to push and grab that bounty off of the tier 2 bot, get a little bit of gold back for the team, but this kind of lead plus the Baron buff plus 6 scrubs is likely to mean nearly the end of the game, you have to think.
And you could even see the early TP from 369. Once Top Esports was confident they weren't going to be challenged at the Baron, 369 won't even allow the tier 2 turret in the bottom lane to fall. The tier 1 in mid is claimed by DK, but now they got to be careful because Kingen's in some trouble. Creme and JackeyLove in hot pursuit as Kingen wants to try to get away from this one, but they are sending 3 dudes after him. Jax, do we get out of these? I'm not sure. Maybe.
It depends if Meiko flashes.
I mean, he has the...
He's flashing.
No, okay, yeah. Meiko flashes over. The counter-strike isn't going to block enough. Not here, not now, no way, not yet. Kingen is down, and Creme's getting a payday.
Yeah, he wanted them. Wasn't going to let him get away that easily. You've been chasing him for a while, so they get the kill onto Kingen. Yes, DK, at least you get the tier 1 mid back, and it is an objective bounty, so it's a little bit of an injection of gold there. But Top have everything they need, I feel like, at this point to be able to close this one out.
You know what else is an injection of gold? Baron.
Yeah.
Gives you a lot. There's going to be a lot more gold being injected here soon from Top Esports, who are just in complete control of this game. 45 seconds until the next Drake spawns. You better believe there's going to be no contest for that one. They've got Baron for the next 2 minutes. All of Summoner's Rift is theirs, and DK have to just creep ever so slowly forward, patiently and methodically checking everything, or it might just be a death trap.
I think this game is just an excellent demonstration of how to play not only the lane swap incredibly well, but how to use an early advantage to snowball a game. We talked about it briefly where like 369 was getting slightly more experience than Kingen. We talked about how they were moving JackeyLove into the right lane at the right time, and just these very small things in the early game ended up building small enough advantages, but those advantages were enough when it came to the crucial moment in that bot lane TP play, because that pressure had built up to a point where DK felt like they had to do something to stop this becoming a bigger snowball. But unfortunately, that pressure, that decision has cost them so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the ult and the heal forced out there by Meiko, as he was kind of left behind a little bit from the rest of the team. You know, and they used everything you're talking about, Eddie, to create these kind of incremental advantages, but then they slammed it home with execution in dives and with execution in these 5v5s, you know, and that's really where you do create a world-class team where you can bring both of that together, where you're playing the macro well and you're playing the micro, the team fights, the individual outplays, and that has been the entire package here for Top. They have been looking very, very dominant in this game number 1.
And it's nice to see because in the playoffs, the upset that happened against Weibo was definitely unexpected, and I think that this was the level of play that people were expecting from Toop Esports, especially after their incredibly strong performance from the regular season. And he's hoping that they can continue this as they continue through the World Championship. Of course, this is only game 1, and right now they're looking like the favorites, but we've always got to come back to that scaling element, right? And if DK can find a miracle pick, if DK can slow the game down in any way, then there are opportunities and way for them still to come back into the game.
And I love that you bring that up right now, Vedius, because we just hit the 3-item power spike for aiming with the rapid fire cannon completed alongside the Muramana and the Trinity Force. 222 stacks right now, so just a couple more, and he will be online Smolder. Now the problem is, you're staring down the barrel of a 7,000 gold lead with a soul point status for the opponents. It's a really, really vertical cliff to have to climb right now for DK in this game 1.
Exactly, and ShowMaker is a mile away from his 3rd item, right? You know, that's another big problem.
He's got a book.
Kingen doesn't even have his 2nd item yet, right? You know, I do think you need 3 items on all these carries, and, you know, I was kind of looking at that couple thousand gold mark where I do think scaling can take over. They are really far behind, though, at this point, so DK are going to need to have some of those X-Factor plays see if they can make a miracle happen, find an incredible shockwave, find a multi-man Skarner ult, something like that.
Well, they're happy to see that arrow miss. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, 369 just trying to keep Kingen's attention here while the 4v4 continues up in the top lane. Without the Baron buff, though, it is easy enough, I would think, for ShowMaker to be able to clear out most of these waves. Nice use of the Pathmaker from 369 to make sure that Kingen isn't getting the better of him. And when Jax is not winning the 1v1 against K'Sante, you are not feeling great with the Jax at this stage of the game. Almost 26 minutes in, 3 minutes until the Hex Soul spawns for Top Esports. But even shorter, it's barely over a minute and a half until the next Baron is around. And Top have total control over Summoner's Rift.
Now the good news for DK is they have picked...
Best of 3.
Oh, you gotta do him like that.
Your quick wit, still sharp as ever, is that? I was going to say that Aimling is playing a champion of all time. And
yes.
This champion not only has great scaling, but also exceptional wave clear. And as our observers just highlighted for us, waves just disappear, which is why you're seeing the progression of Top Esports' offense onto the base slow down, because the reality is that it's very difficult to siege against an Orianna and a Smolder, so you're kind of forced to leverage objectives. The Baron is spawning in a minute's time, and it wouldn't surprise me, like you're already seeing Top Esports do it, suffocate the vision, and you're going to force DK into a situation where you either come and fight or you concede the Baron. And in either situation, that's what Top Esports is looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the map, and it's just kind of like this really shallow vision here along there that DK have. That is just about it, as they're going to look for a pick inside lane.
Yeah, it's a pick onto a K'Sante, though. 369, he goes for the all-out. It doesn't get through the terrain, but then he's immediately ready to flash over the wall to get to safety. So 369 escapes. The rest of Top Esports coming down to the area in case DK wanted to go for a very long chase. But now with the K'Sante safety secured and 15 seconds left in the Baron timer, Top Esports are right back to what you were talking about, Vedius. It's time to set up for Baron. It's time to force DK's hand.
At the very least, not only did they get the flash there, but they actually bought time for a Moham to move in and get more vision around this area. Yep. So they got a little bit better vision. They have one ward over into the pit. That's obviously going to be swept out, but this ward over by Raptor is not bad either. And DK is going to have to make that really hard choice of, do we contest at Baron? Because you're very far down. If you lose that, it is game over. But by the same token, if you give over Baron for free, you're going to lose full map control. Your wave clear becomes much less effective. And then Top are going to have full run of the map to set up for this soul here.
Whoa, nice shot again. That is the second time
those.
this game that JackeyLove has shot a long-range arrow to force the flash from ShowMaker.
And I feel like when he's playing it in the LPL, it's the same story. It is ridiculous how good he is at timing out these cross-map arrows. He's so effective at it, just predicting exactly where they'll be based on the move speed. It's really impressive stuff, and now the job for DK gets very difficult. You check too far forward, you die. You don't check far forward enough, you lose the Baron.
All right, Lucid does have the flashback up here on the Skarner, but he still has to be so careful. They use Moham just because they don't know if they're already on the Baron, and as soon as the Dragon sees that there's just nothing there in the pit, it's always going to feel bad.
The power of paranoia is very effective,
yes,
especially at the high level, because as smart as you are and as good as you are at League, the reality is that you can't see into the fog of war. And so you need that information. It's crucial. On Top Esports, they're very wisely, they're just starting the Baron. They'll like hit a ward, and then they'll back off a little bit, you know, and they're just like, have we started or have we not? And then DK feel that pressure. And it comes back to what we said at the start of the game, those pedals where you're just putting that bits of pressure on to force DK's hand.
DK were actually, pinging heavily over onto the Dragon. They're trying to get the inside track, but they've given up full prio in mid lane, and Kingen is not with them. There is a ward behind the pit, though, where he could look to TP. This is probably the game being decided right here.
All right, it's soul fight time. TP coming in from Kingen. Top Esports backing away, but continuing slow DPS onto the Dragon. Kingen on the left flank. Everybody else on DK here on the right. Tian gonna be grabbed there by the Skarner. The objective bounty claimed by Lucid. DK getting it done, but now Creme's going between worlds off to the side while 369 and Kingen duel up on the left. It's gonna be the first kill on Moham. Top Esports are about to lose their mid laner. He's down. Now they're gonna turn right back over onto Kingen. The Jax goes into the Zonias. He's staying alive for now with another beautifully timed counter strike. He flashes back over the wall. DK's gonna try to regroup, but the Ashe has the damage. JackeyLove gets it done, and it's a 1-for-2 trade, favoring Top Esports as the remaining 4 men head back over to the Baron pit.
Top Esports crucially got the kill onto Lucid. With the jungler gone, the smite is gone. Dplus KIA played a good fight. It was slow, it was patient, they leveraged their range, they got a good front to back. But when they overchase, that's where the Ashe becomes deadly, as she was able to use that kiting prowess and re-engage to turn the fight in Top Esports' favor.
Yeah, it just becomes so difficult, and now the Baron is going to be secured here by Top. Creme was not very effective on that flank. They were able to turn on him, burst him down pretty easily. His ultimate actually only connected on Lucid, unfortunately. He was looking for this big backline flank where he's going to try to get multiple members. And you can kind of watch Creme here at the top of the screen. You know, he's going to look for this angle in onto the backline here. While on the other side, it's Kingen looking for the same thing. But Kingen is marked by 369, and watch this ulti only connecting onto Lucid. But Lucid immediately eases him into the wall, stuns him up, and Aimling is able to get a Q here, even with the heal and the flash coming out. That burn was still there to be able to finish him off, and it's from this point, as you say, Eddie, that the gold kind of starts to really show.
Yeah, once you kind of over-chase, in a sense, towards an Ashe, especially with the Braum there, Braum lands a single Q, the passive then gets applied, and Ashe is like, right, okay, I know this combo pretty well.
Once you're in, you don't get out.
Yeah, pretty much, and the power of the Freljord ends up becoming very proficient there. So Top Esports, they secured the Baron. That's the objective that they need. They didn't get the Soul, so Dplus KIA at least have a small positive, but now the Siege will come through, and that wave clear that DK have is going to be less effective.
Yeah, Lucid may have died, which gave over the Baron, but he also secured the objective steal to make sure that they did not give that Hex Soul, so at least you can count that as a silver lining. But Top Esports are barreling down top lane now. You can see they've still got 369 over in mid for the split pressure. It's still going to take them a while to try to chip through some of this, except for 369 nearly killing. There it goes, the one in mid lane already down as that inhibitor is now exposed. Top Esports happy to wait for the next wave to arrive here in the top lane. Objective bounty claimed in the bot lane at the same time as the tier 2 is destroyed by Kingen, and now Top sees the opportunity to full send it underneath the tier 3 here at the top side. It's already gone. Moham and Lucid going to be taking a lot of damage as Moham's about to be killed. Lucid gets away back underneath the Nexus turrets. Moham's still alive somehow. Top Esports haven't lost a man, and the Skarner's also down. 3v5 for DK. Top Esports claim their first inhibitor. They claim 2 inhibitor turrets. They get everybody out, and 369 is ready to retreat and teleport back into the fight.
Yeah, Aiming got a lot of members over on the top side really low, but he just couldn't actually finish them off, couldn't chase in to be able to get those kills, and now the job gets so difficult. The TP's coming back in.
All right, Top Esports want to end it right here. First Nexus turret and second, both dropping at about the same speed. Kingen wants to keep these guys away with a counter-strike, but it ain't going to do enough. Both turrets already dead. 369 tanking it up on the front line as Kingen is already down. Aiming focused up next. He flashes back into the fountain, but it will not matter. Top Esports take game 1.
A clean game from Top Esports from start to finish. Very little to criticize as the bot lane, 607 for JackeyLove, 0114. Meiko was only not involved in a single kill in that entire game.
Yeah, he barely stepped a foot wrong. Really well played game by Top.
Top Esports dominate the first game, and you can dominate the Rift with Opera GX. Get official league mods for your browser, access a dedicated Riot Corner and match schedules and tournament news, and enjoy a brand new co-streaming hub for live broadcasts. We're in best of 3 territory now, though, ladies and gentlemen, so don't you worry. We got more Top versus DK coming up after the break.
This is necessary.
Red Bull gives you wings.
You wish. In the dojo. You want to pet home?
Ashe.